Brigadier General Darrell Stuart Cramer was born March 2, 1922, in Ogden, Utah. As a student at Weber High School, he played on the school's baseball and basketball teams, and after graduating in 1940, attended nearby Weber College, now Weber State University. On January 22, 1942, Cramer enlisted as an aviation cadet in the U.S. Army Air Corps. He received his pilot's wings and commissioned as second lieutenant 8 months later at Luke Field, Arizona, and began what would become a lifelong career of military service. In November 1942, after just 2 months of combat training, Second Lieutenant Cramer was deployed to the South Pacific as a P-38 pilot assigned to the 339th Fighter Squadron of the 13th Air Force. He participated in the campaigns of Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and Northern Solomons, and was credited for destruction of a Japanese Zero fighter and a Betty bomber aircraft. Cramer returned to the United States to attend P-47 Combat Training School in Abilene, Texas. By June 1944, he had achieved the rank of general and was assigned to support Allied forces in the European theater. During this tour, Cramer flew with the 55th Fighter Group, the first P-38 Lightning group to go fully operational from England. The group converted to P-51 Mustangs a year later and earned 2 Distinguished Unit citations, one for the destruction of 106 enemy aircraft during a 10-day raid in September 1944, and the second for strafing achievements in Germany the following February, where low-flying fighters used aircraft-mounted machine guns and cannons to strike strategic targets on the ground. General Cramer himself served as a wingman and then a squadron commander within the 55th, ultimately completing these assignments with 300 flying hours in 60 missions, and credit for the destruction of 11 German aircraft. At the end of World War II, he returned to the United States, temporarily leaving active duty to join a business venture with his father. Having joined the Utah Air National Guard in 1947, Cramer was attending Air Command and Staff School for Air Reserve and Air National Guard officers at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, when the Operation Vittles, also known as the Berlin Airlift, began in June 1948. It was the beginning of the Cold War, and tension in Europe was once again rising. In hopes of driving the United States, France, and Britain out of Western-occupied Berlin, the Russians had seized control of all highways, railroads, and canals leading in. Refusing to withdraw, the Allies responded with the Berlin Airlift Campaign, ultimately supplying non-Soviet sectors of the city with more than 2.3 million tons of cargo. General Cramer was assigned to Operation Vittles in January 1949, flying with and later commanding the 48th Troop Carrier Squadron at Fassburg. The squadron continued to fly airlift missions in Berlin until Operation Vittles concluded in September 1949. During the effort, one of Cramer's contemporaries, Colonel Gail Seymour Halverson, created a complementary effort, Operation Little Vittles. An effort to raise morale in Berlin, the operation dropped more than 23 tons of candy on the city by miniature parachute and earned Halverson international fame as Uncle Wiggly Wings, the candy bomber. For the next 2 decades, General Cramer continued to serve full-time in the United States Air Force. During the early 1950s, he directed the Advanced Flying School at Williams Air Force Base, Arizona, commanded the 53rd Fighter Squadron, 36th Fighter Bomber Wing in Germany, and served as Deputy Chief of Staff in the Directorate of Personnel Planning in Washington, D.C. He was next stationed on George Air Force Base near Victorville, California, where he fulfilled 2 assignments as Deputy Commander for Operations of the 831st Air Division and also commanded the 479th Tactical Fighter Wing. In August 1960, General Cramer was appointed Chief of the Operations Branch of the U.S. Air Force Group's Joint U.S. Military Mission for Aid to Turkey at Ankara. As conflict escalated in Southeast Asia at the onset of the Vietnam War, General Cramer returned to George Air Force Base to reassume command of the 479th Tactical Fighter Wing, which spent 3 months on temporary combat duty in the Republic of Vietnam. General Cramer then directed fighter operations at Headquarters Tactical Air Command, Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. After attending the Industrial College of the Armed Forces in Washington, D.C., he returned to George Air Force Base to assume full command of the 831st. In June 1969, General Cramer was redeployed to Southeast Asia, where he commanded the 432nd Tactical Reconnaissance Wing at Udorn Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand. He was reassigned 8 months later to Tan Son Nhut Airfield in the Republic of Vietnam as Director of Combat Operations, Headquarters 7th Air Force. There, he was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. In February 1971, Brigadier General Cramer became Vice Commander of the 17th Air Force at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Following his service, the general retired to Springville, Utah, where, until the time of his passing, he enjoyed golfing, family history, and close association with friends and family. He died at home on January 17, 2007, at the age of 84, and is buried in the Lindquist's Washington Heights Memorial Park in his hometown of Ogden. Brigadier General Darrell Stuart Cramer's many military decorations include the Distinguished Service Medal, the Legion of Merit with Oak Leaf Cluster, and a Distinguished Flying Cross with Oak Leaf Cluster. From his heroism during World War II to his leadership in Vietnam, his story is featured prominently within the chapters of Utah aviation history.